Okay, so I'm going to put this back actually, because what we're going to be doing now, it's going to require this other way to invoke our start activity. So let me comment that out so you see there is other way to do that. I'm going to pass intent as that. Okay, very good. So like I said before, in order for us to pass anything to the other side, the other activity, as you see here, intent, right? We pass the intent constructor there, and we pass this activity, the current context, and we pass also where we're going or intending to go. So as we transport now this intent here, this intent has all sort of things, right? Not just this code behind that says, okay, go from here, main activity, to the second activity, show guest, but we can also attach things to it so that when we pass here, when we say start intent, meaning it's going to open a new activity, we can also have other things that we've added inside of this intent. That's the beauty of intent. So in fact, here I can come and say intent dot, there's this method called put extra. Now this is an overload method, as you can see here. Overloaded because each method has different signatures here, right? There's different parameters we can pass. We can pass floats, we can pass strings, and so forth, right? Now the cool thing here is that when we put something, you can go ahead and read more about it. But in a nutshell, it says we can put an extra string and the actual value, or we can put a string as the key and another string at the bottom as well too. So we can put all sort of things, but it has to be two values. So if you hit enter, we have to pass something. So in this case, I'm going to pass a string. This string is going to be the key, or in this case, the name of this item we want to retrieve. If you go back to understanding hash maps, we had the sense of key value keys. If you go back to the hash map data structure collection that we talked about, you remember that the idea is to have this key value structure, right? That allows us to have the key in order to retrieve the value. So that is the same thing here. So the first thing is going to be the key. So I can give it any name. I can just say guess, and the value that I want to retrieve, if I call the key guess, it's going to be, for instance, hello there. Okay, there we go. So now I've put this extra inside of our intent object here, which when we start the activity, not only will it take us to the show guess, but it will tag along this extra message here that says guess is the key and hello is the value. So if I want to get this hello value, I have to go and get the guess. But then, okay, wonderful. Everything works fine. But then how do I then get this value on the second activity? Well, that's when we come out here in the second activity. Inside here, I can go ahead and say get intent. So there's this intent method that is again available to us because we're inside of an activity. So get intent like that. I'm going to say that get string extra like this. Notice the string extra in this case here, it allows us to pass the name of the item that we're trying to get. In this case, it's just the key. Hit enter, and it has to be the same key that we added, which was guess as such. Okay, and then we're going to put that inside of a string value, something like this. Okay, so in this case here, I can go back here and get our text view, right? Because we have, remember, we're inside of our show guess, which is this activity show guess here, which we have this text view called receive text view ID. So I can set everything up now, text view, and I can come down here and say show guess text view. Find view by ID r.id dot, what did we call it? It's a text field, the receive text view. There we go. There we go. Okay. And now notice something very interesting here, and it should not come as a surprise, but I will say it anyway. Now, the reason why we're able to use this find view by ID here and get the receive text view is because this is very contextual. For our show guess activity here, we are connecting to activity show guess. Hence, we are able to get everything that we put inside of our show guess. We will not be able to say r.id and get any ID from activity main, nor should you want to do that, okay? Now, there are ways in which to do that, but just remember that each activity should be its own compartment as the Android operating system runs your application. So now we have our value here, right? We say get intent, so it's given to us because we're inside of just activity. You say get intent, it's a method. We go and get the extra method inside of that, So we have the get intent and we get the extra and pass the guest name. Now, this is indeed the ID, which means it has to be exactly the ID that we pass here when we say put extra. Now, the get intent, as you can see here, makes sense. Get intent, that means the intent that is being received from the previous windows or previous activities. At this point here, I can come down here and say show that set text and pass the value, just like that. Okay. If I run this, we should be able to see something. Just say guest name and hello there is showing. Now, this works fine, as you saw, but this is not always the best way to deal with this. So what I like to do usually is actually put inside of an if statement, just to make sure that if indeed we have something from our extras, as you see in our intent here, we want to then put inside of our set text view. This is just to make sure we don't run into issues, okay? A checkpoint, if you will. So what I like to do is I say get intent, that get string, like that, okay? And I put the guess, the key, is not equal to null. Then I just go ahead and call this. Oops, this is just to be 1, not 2. There we go. Like that, okay? And just to make things even better, I just gonna go ahead and say get intent, or actually I can just get all of this inside here. A little overkill, as you see, but at least helps. Oops, there we go. Okay, so if the intent that we're getting is not null, that's when we're actually going to go and extract something out of it, okay? Or I could have just taken all of this like that and put it all in there, okay? That's probably better. There we go, okay? So this is a nice way of checking to make sure that we don't run into a lot of issues and it should work properly. So save again. Like I said, nothing really is going to change in terms of the usability at this point, but at least we will be knowing that things have worked fine. So go back and say, okay, see, it still works. So we're getting the guess here. All right, so very good. So we were able then to use the get intent on the second activity and extract whatever we have passed in our main here. Now, the ultimate thing we actually want to do here is to be able to get the information from our activity main, this information that we're going to let users enter, to then pass through our intent, as we saw here, because here was just hard-coded, so I could show you exactly how to do this. But now we will be able to get that information from our edit text and put in our extra here, and then, of course, have it show in our text view on show guess.